Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way to review the motion picture from 1987 by the name of White Water Summer. So this movie I don't think I knew anything about until just recently. I was flipping through I recently kind of acquainted myself with iTunes movies, and if I can find something on iTunes for a fraction of the cost, of the Blu-ray release, like Daryl. I recently reviewed Daryl, and I mentioned in that review that I was able to get the 4K Vinegar Syndrome scan for $5 on sale versus the $30+ 4K Blu-ray combo from Vinegar Syndrome. So I got that, and as of late, I'm basically, not only checking Blu-ray prices several times on Blu-ray.com daily, but now also iTunes movies prices, and I came across this title on there that I don't think I may have seen the more recent home video, like DVD cover art, but I don't think I really knew anything about this movie. Basically a movie that I guess if the information I saw online is correct, it might have been filmed in '85, and the bit with that one kid narrating it might have been filmed in '87. I think it came out in '87. '87. The one kid I think is from Goonies. For the record, I'm not, and this might piss a lot of you off, but I'm not actually a fan of Goonies at all. It's one of those movies that I don't think I really grew up with. Maybe if I would have grown up with it, I'd have a different feeling about it. But having seen it, as an older adult and stuff, and seen it several times, Goonies doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for me. So I think it's one of the kids from Goonies. His name escapes me at the moment. Went on to to be in this, and like I say, I think there's like a 2-year gap between the majority of the filming where he's in with the other kids and Kevin Bacon, and then him just being in the woodsy area, dressed all fancy schmancy. He's got like a mullet kind of haircut, and he's talking about this experience or whatever. So I think there's a 2-year difference between that, and I think there's also possibly, you can also see one of the kids, or more than one of the kids, kind of get a little older throughout the course of the movie maybe, and then get younger again. So it's interesting when you're filming with kids going through puberty and stuff, teenagers, they just might spurt up or whatever during the production of film. But anyway, if you like myself had never heard about this movie before, or know nothing about this movie, it's basically about Kevin Bacon plays this, I don't know what, mountain man or whatever the hell you want to call it, maybe, late 80s hippie, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, but outdoor mountain man who, I don't know if he goes around selling his little thing where he takes a group of teenagers out on some, summer wilderness excursion for, maybe a month, or I don't know how many weeks it is or whatever. Just, takes them out, and it kind of instead of summer camp, this guy will just take maybe a group of four, kids, teenagers, whatever, out and for weeks of outdoor, excitement, learning, adventure, or whatever. And I think this is just, what's this rated? This might just be rated PG, I think, or PG-13, or maybe even PG. I'm not exactly sure, but the parents kind of have to talk this kid from Goonies into going. He's kind of the nerdy kid, and the other three, well, maybe there's one other kid who's kind of nerdy, and the other two kind of more rough and tumble kids, and then Kevin Bacon all take this really cool vintage VW van thing that's really cool with a canoe on top, and take it to this park. I guess this is filmed somewhere in California. Really, this movie was really up my alley. Oh, I should say that it was $5 on iTunes. It was the movie was listed as on sale for $5, and I was like, should I just blind buy this? But then I'm like, Then I looked up the trailer on YouTube, and then I saw the trailer, and then I also saw it was free with ads on YouTube. Then I'm like, well, maybe I'll check Tubi. So actually, it was on Tubi, so I watched it on Tubi. What's really strange about this movie is on Tubi, it's like the aspect ratio is 1:8:5, and then I looked at a little bit of it on YouTube, and that's like the Panavision aspect ratio, and the iTunes version is the Panavision aspect ratio. So IMDb says it's the Panavision, wider aspect ratio. So I don't know where Tubi got why the Tubi version is 1:8:5, but I watched the Tubi 1:8:5 version. I probably, a good thing I didn't blind buy it, even though it was just $5. I probably won't buy it. I watched it to see if it, if I wanted to buy it on, iTunes for $5 on sale or whatever. Because I think the DVD, I think it only came out on DVD, and I think that's, long since out of print and very expensive or whatever. So I'm not going to pay like $45 or more for the DVD when you can buy HD iTunes for, 5 or whatever. But having seen it, I don't think I'll buy it because for reasons I'll get into. But yeah, just take the kids on this adventure, and things are all hunky dory. And it's one of the situations where, as the movie progresses, Kevin Bacon's behavior gets maybe a little more goofy. When it comes to the kid from Goonies, the kid might be a little more of a whiny kind of a kid who might not want to do this or that, things related to heights or perilous situations or whatever, and Kevin Bacon might treat him a little, I mean, one can kind of, it might be like the 19th century version of raising a kid or raising a boy or whatever, just kind of like, well, leave him to do it, and if he can't do it, he'll die, and kind of, survival of the fittest or whatever. But admittedly, for this, taking these 4 kids, being paid presumably to take these 4 kids out on this excursion, he should maybe be a little more pleasant and not so, rough on these kids, or in the case of this movie, I guess more or less the one kid from Goonies or whatever. So as the movie wears on, it just becomes more of that, like if the Goonies kid doesn't want to do something or whatever, the Kevin Bacon character will, make him cross the dreaded, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom rope bridge, or sit on the island, all night in a storm if you don't want to clean the fish, kind of a thing. And it's just, as I said, as the movie progresses, Kevin Bacon gets a little more kind of, whatever you want to call it, asshole-ish or psychotic in his behavior, to the point where, like, I think there's like 3 main areas, the rope bridge, cleaning the fish on the, or relieve you on the island, and then like the hanging from the rope when you're on the rock climbing portion of this excursion. And I gotta say, like, as the movie, wears on or whatever, it trudges on, it's kind of like, god damn, what kind of a, I mean, this is like some hardcore stuff he's taking these kids doing, and first time kids, and just like, all this, dangerous whitewater rafting and rock climbing, and sending a kid by himself to go across this rope bridge and back. And it's just like, it's a movie admittedly, but it's just like, god dang. And it's kind of a disappointment that I turned out not to really like it so much. The reason I don't want to own it even though you don't really own it if you buy it on iTunes, the reason I don't want to buy it on iTunes and kind of half-ass own it until they decide to not have me own it anymore, or whatever would happen in the future potentially, is like the Kevin, just seeing it once, like the Kevin Bacon character just halfway through the last half or whatever, you just don't want to, it reminds me too much of just being mistreated as a kid myself, teenager, whatever, and just dealing with psychotic, older people, or psychotic people my age, or psychotic younger people, or just psychotic people in general. And I get enough of it, I've had enough of this in my life, and I don't need to, watch a movie to see this crap. So, yeah, admittedly, I was excited when it first started, because it's, it pretty much all takes place outdoors, and it's really beautiful, my kind of thing, camping and all this and that. Oh, I should be said also, before I forget, that this very well might be John Alcott's last movie as a cinematographer. I mean, perhaps he departed this mortal plane after he did this movie, because John Alcott, of course, is a famous cinematographer for movies like, pretty sure 2001: A Space Odyssey. Did he do that one? I think Barry Lyndon, possibly The Shining, Terror Train, which is, more popular than any Stanley Kubrick movie. Just kidding. But John Alcott was a cinematographer. I appreciated his cinematography in the Stanley Kubrick films, and Terror Train, of course. I've said on this channel that thanks to John Alcott, Terror Train is probably one of the best looking slasher films ever made. But yeah, John Alcott was a director of photography on this. In the opening credits, it's kind of cool. It says, director of photography John Alcott, to whom this film is dedicated. And that's really rare. Usually they'll wait until the end credits, but that was really cool that they did that. So John Alcott lensed this movie, and I gotta say, I mean, unlike Terror Train, which you can really tell, you know, it looks like a kind of a Stanley Kubrick movie, if you will. Like this one, you wouldn't even know if you're just watching it that, you know, the great John Alcott did it or whatever. So, you know, it maybe the producer or the director, you know, said let's do a more traditional cinematography, Hollywood, whatever. But yeah, it doesn't really look like, you know, the great John Alcott of, you know, 70s or, you know, early 80s or whatever. But I didn't want to forget to mention that detail about this movie. But I guess that'll more or less be my short, you know, short and quick, maybe not that quick, review of White Water Summer. I was, you know, the first half I was like, oh yeah, this is right up my alley. You know, the whole thing's outdoors and there's thunderstorms and camping in tents and, you know, I'm not into white water, you know, paddling. If I'm on a river, it's sure as shit not white water rafting, but I'm into, you know, outdoors and this and that and a lot of things. I don't care about rock climbing. That's another thing. The last quarter of this movie or whatever is all about like rock climbing and the perils of rock climbing, and I'm not interested in rock climbing. So I guess like halfway, you know, into it, or the last half, I was like, yeah, especially with Kevin Bacon's behavior, it's like, yeah, I don't need to own this or half-ass own it or whatever it would be with iTunes or whatever. My star rating for this movie, probably, let me see here. Yeah, god dang it. Am I ever going to do a review where I go, you know, below or above this rating? It's just been a trend. I'm not being a lazy bum. It just so happens to be. This might be a little high, honestly, because the last half is so annoying with, like, the Kevin Bacon just being nuts kind of stuff is just annoying or whatever and stuff, and the last half can get annoying. But I guess I can do 2 stars out of 4 stars for, what's this called? White Water Summer. I think it had possibly another alternate name or title, or maybe more than one alternate title or whatever, but I guess on auto-print DVD, and I don't think ever made its way to Blu-ray, but it is on, you know, I think HD iTunes or HD digital. You might be able to see it on YouTube free with ads or TubiTV.com. But yeah, you know, I was excited that it might be, you know, something I could add to my repertoire of, you know, outdoor movies that I could enjoy every summer or whatever. But turns out, just because of the nature of, like, just, you know, maybe just the last half of it or whatever, and just some of the more negative aspects of the movie or the Kevin Bacon character, that, yeah, it's not necessarily enjoyable because it reminds me too much about real life and, you know, experiences I may have had as a younger person. And just, I don't want to, you know, when I watch a movie, I want to escape. I don't want to think about real assholes, or I don't want to be made to remind myself of assholes that I've had to deal with in the past or whatever. So I guess that pretty much does it for my review. Can't necessarily say I recommend it. It does have some, you know, nice scenery and whitewater rafting. Of course, I already reviewed, you know, Kevin Bacon would go on to do, you know, in 1994, another whitewater river film by the name of River Wild. I've already reviewed that movie years ago. As a matter of fact, I might have reviewed it for, what the hell, how old would it have been? Yeah, that would have been its 20th anniversary. I actually reviewed the River Wild on a river, sitting in a kayak. I was on the river, it was a 2014 might have been, and I did a river, you know, day trip on the river, and I reviewed a handful of river movies. I think A River Runs Through It, what's the one with Crispin Glover, River's Edge or something. I think I reviewed at least those 3 movies in 2014 while paddling on a river in a kayak. So how's that for, you know, location appropriate movie reviews? So I guess feel free to check out those reviews. Just search on my search, you know, the search option for this particular channel. Just, I guess if you typed river, you might come up with those reviews that I actually shot while floating on a river. So I guess that about does it for this review. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.